All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Workbench. Here, excited to be joined with James Zayner, Director of B2B Marketing at Modernize Home Services. As always, I'm your host, Bryan Shankman. James, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you joining me for the first episode in person for the Workbench.
Love it.
Yeah, big moment. Everyone knows me. I'm the host, Bryan.
Yeah.
Co-founder, CEO of Lead Truffle.
Yeah. By the way, I love the pig as the logo. I didn't have to think long about it. And
Truffle, we're snorting, sniffing out
well, the
truffle
truffle pigs.
leads.
That's how you find them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, man, for people that don't know you and want to learn more about your background, give us a little intro.
Yeah. James Zayner. I spent a long time in San Francisco in what we would call B2B SaaS. Yeah. It's a little bit different industry than home improvement, but similar style. You got to try to get profitable and things like that. Learned a lot of really interesting novel growth ideas from that industry and kind of got worn out spinning my tires doing the same thing over and over again. And I started looking into more tangible businesses. And so I was looking at LASIK and plastic surgery, even dentists. I was like, how do I generate money for these types of
things
companies?
That weren't reinventing the wheel, right?
Yeah.
The tech companies is always net new thing no one's ever done before, and we're going to make it work for the first time in human history. Whereas there's just probably the majority of the economy is no, this thing that we know people have wanted and have wanted for the past 50 years, and we just sell it at a good price and market it well.
Yeah.
Right. So okay.
And they exist, right, everywhere. And I just was really interested in that because I did it before. I was in Chicago. I was in the art business. We were doing frame shops, and so we were able to grow that pretty big. And then my sister called me and asked me to come out to San Francisco to do a startup with her. And then I got caught up in that whirlwind for 7 years. So I left, and fortunately I had a friend put me in touch with Jamie Smith, my boss over at Modernize. And I was specifically looking, I really liked the idea of getting into construction. Austin was this new construction haven. There was new houses going up every block, a lot of buildings going up. And so it was something that really interested me. And when I came across the profile and I came across the business and I was told how it all works and everything, I was like, wow, it's just math. It's this math problem. And I love that. And I really wanted to get into it. And so I've been there for a year now. I specifically am in charge of the business unit that goes after companies to get them interested in our services of lead generation, lead partner. And it's been going really well. I've loved it. A lot of awesome projects that we've built. We're very interested in AI and things like that. So, yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense that we met at an event for Clay because Clay is all about new leads and lead generation, and we use Clay daily for Lead Truffle in my businesses, and it's how we source a lot of our leads and build the campaigns. So it makes sense we met at a lead gen meetup, essentially.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the nitty gritty, for people that aren't familiar, and there's a podcast trope at this point, but we were talking about this before we started rolling. Mm-hmm. What is Modernize? Is it basically just Thumbtack and Angie's List and Yelp, or what? For those that don't know, can you talk about Modernize?
Yeah. Thumbtack, Angie, Yelp. There is a way of going about collecting communities, building trust, and then delivering that trust and interest in a service to a provider. I know that there's 1-800-DENTIST. There's 1-800-CAR insurance, right? There's these ways of going about getting leads down a funnel. And so, Modernize is in that category. There are key differentiators for each business that probably, they say, segregate themselves from the rest. Our specific profile, we like to say we're very interested in the data behind everything. We're very big advocates on our customers sharing their data back with us. So we generate the leads. We do 4 different products. We have your shared lead, your warm call, your inbound call, and then we have what's called branded programs, which is your typical kind of branded campaign that you would do across the internet, digital space. Yeah. You got your display ads, your search engine marketing, things like that, landing pages, funnels for the brand.
So let's distill it down, right? Because a lot of our audience is either home service owner operators who are getting leads through the website, through Google's kind of the 800-pound gorilla, right? Or agencies who are helping these companies drive leads. So if they're hearing this and thinking, Okay, yeah, another lead source. Like, great. Why not use Modernize? Talk to me about how, like, would Modernize generate a new lead for my plumbing company?
Yeah.
Like, where is that lead coming from? Are they searching for a plumber in my area, in their area? Like, what's the general lead life cycle to, okay, my phone's ringing?
Yeah, there's a variety of channels. It can be SEM, it can be SEO, it can be a specific like content site, and our publishers, our publishing network, as well as our own website. We have cost calculators and comparison boards for near me and things like that, where you're just trying to really get the attention and the trust of somebody. And once you get that and you can get them down the funnel and engaged, and they fill out a form and they say we're interested, or they click on a button that says call now, and then their cell phone automatically loads up the number and calls. That's what really the game we're playing is. Like, we're just trying to capture, especially in plumbing where it's more of an emergency service. You're trying to capture the person in the moment of need and get them to the provider as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Now you probably get this question a lot. I think that the lead aggregators, maybe you don't like that term, but I would imagine most people might lump you into that category for better or worse. I think a lot of the lead aggregators are a great way to kickstart your business. I worked with a virtual dog training business, and like, just to get in front of that audience is tough. There's like dog owners. There's like, are you going to cold email a dog owner? Maybe, but they were using Bark, I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was a good way for them they were new to like jumpstart. Like, I can get reps on a conversation with a person who needs dog training today.
Yeah.
Right. So like, there's a ton of value in shrinking that, that distance between I'm starting a business and I need leads. So that being said, a lot of these aggregators do get a bad rap, I think, maybe because Sally needs a plumber or Sally needs a dog trainer, and now you're competing against 10 other folks for that lead. So what do you say to people when they're like, oh, lead aggregators are not in a business owner's best interest, or like what's typically your position on, hey, lead aggregators and their value in 2025?
Yeah. Their value is they're part of the commerce level of home improvement or dog training or whatever the services are. They exist out there. And I've heard some people use the phrase necessary evil. And I think it's more of like a necessary neutral. Like, you yourself can't do enough SEO and enough LSA and enough SEM to get all of the leads in your area, right? Your impression share, like, are you going to pay the most for the impression share and all that? And so what these lead partners try to do is they get you the lead at a cost that makes sense to your math. And I think that's how owners have to think about it. And I think the best owners that get from 1 million to 3 million or 3 million to 5 million, they really start implementing these math-based systems of, I want to know what my conversion rates are at this point. Where am I having fall off? I want to know what my top of funnel is. Where is my fall off? And so with the lead partner, and you can ask your partner how many times they share the lead, and they should tell you. We share ours 4 times. And so that means if every lead was perfect, which they're not, and not every lead has the same value or whatever, is worth the same amount.
It's going to happen. Part of the game.
But if every lead was perfect and every lead converted into a job and everybody was doing their best, effectively 1 out of 4 times, every person that's buying into that shared lead should get a job. So like every 4 leads, you should get a job. If you're buying the lead for $50, that means in the end you're paying $200 per job. Like, and you can just math it out like that. A lot of people will use the net sales per lead issue. They'll call it NSLI. A lot of people use cost of marketing, which is basically at the end, that's your, what is your income? And then you come back and you say, how much did I pay for leads to get to that income? And other people just use standard ROAS. And they just consider it a channel just like LSA. Actually, I was just at Wilson Plumbing, and that's how they do it. They do ROAS. And so they just consider lead partners similar to any other lead coming in from any other place.
Yeah, now, obviously can't speak for John Wilson, CEO of Wilson Companies. I think for a lot of people who listen to this and are in the Twitter online sphere of, I don't want to say younger, but like the new age home services industry, a lot of people are familiar with John Wilson, his brand, and owned and operated. Anything you can share from like insights from how he operates his business, or aha moments you had in talking to him that might make sense for our audience and things they could like try for themselves?
Yeah, again, I feel like Andrew, what was his name? Andrew Wang, the presidential candidate that had the hat that said
Yeah,
math
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
Like I would literally wear a hat that just says math.
I have that T-shirt. It's a really soft T-shirt. Make America think again. Or
Yeah.
Make America think harder.
Yeah, but yeah, something like that.
Soft tee. One of my go-tos. Yeah, I was
Movie
a fan.
night
I
tee.
liked him, not to get political, but I thought he had a good platform when he first came out, but didn't work out.
But like literally, like that's how I think about this. That's how I even think about operating my own strategy and my own business is math.
Yeah.
Like, how can I break this down to numbers that make sense so that I can then forecast? That's the whole goal. It's not what's happening tomorrow. It's what's happening in 3 months, and am I planning for it? What's happening, especially in home improvement when it's weather dependent in a lot of cases with like HVAC and things like that.
Yeah.
Like you want to be able to forecast, and if you can't forecast, you don't know how much you're going to be making next month. You're going to have a really hard time, and you don't know how much you're going to be needing to spend on labor. You don't know how much you're going to be, and so if you can get all of that into place on an Excel spreadsheet, I know certain softwares offer certain features, like Service Titan has a really manageable interface. It's expensive, but however you can get to that point of knowing, that's like the best time to start working with a lead partner.
Let's talk about closing the leads. Obviously, with Lead Truffle, we focus on speed to lead, like a lot of companies do. And the moment that lead's on your website and submit their information, they will get a text within like 5 seconds, and then move that lead through the funnel. We focus a lot on text. We're starting to talk about voice and how we're going to implement that. A lot of the people we sign up have a web form that goes to some inbox that's not monitored, and they're asking 20 questions on the web form, and they have a web chat that no one's paying attention to. So there's just a lot of low-hanging fruit from what I've seen on the conversion side of things. For some of the companies you guys work with at Modernize, or just from what you've seen, like what are some of those best practices around closing that lead, whether it's coming from Modernize or some other source? Like where have you seen your best companies win?
It's understanding how to build a workflow and understanding what an if-then statement is. And in a lot of these tools, your CRM, even with call center technology, you're building these if-then statements like if lead comes in and they're net new and it's not a returning customer, send them down this path, right? And you automatically have something going. And like you said, 5 seconds, get them. Like go get them, because everybody else is also trying to go get them. And it's going to be the person who's the fastest that at least gets the first presentation. And so if you can get the first presentation, at least you're stuck in their mind. And sure, maybe somebody else might beat you out on some place, and you can figure that out in the math too. Like, where are we losing? Like, why are people not signing up with us? Sometimes it's price, sometimes it's value, sometimes you're not carrying the right manufacturing supplies. So, yeah, the speed to lead is so important, but then it's also like quality of communication. And that's, again, it comes down to math. Are you experimenting on the subject line? Are you experimenting on the text that you're sending? Or are you just sending a canned message that you had ChatGPT write for you? And you're like, well, at least we're doing it. No, you got to be engaged and doing, not just like being there and be like, hey, we built the workflow. Yeah, you built the workflow, but there's also people out there competing and testing subject lines and testing body copy. And so I do think that there is room for people that are just getting started to build a simple workflow and get in, and that's better than not doing anything. But if you really want to get into the game, using a tool like Lead Truffle, using these inbound-centric tools that are workflow programs that you can really get movement out of those leads. You can rehash, a variety of different things that will enable you to make the most out of the lead that's coming in. That's going to give you the best outcomes.
In terms of like what you do at Modernize, I think this is a subject a little different from what we normally talk about on the Workbench, but I think it's super interesting because you and I both do it pretty much daily, and that's getting in front of these home service owner operators. So many ways to do it. You can pay for ads on Facebook. You can try and do SEO for your own business. We do a lot of outbound at Lead Truffle. Starting to test some lead magnets, things like that, like free tools.
I love that tool.
Yeah, you tried. Yeah,
that was my favorite. That, like, if you're a home improvement business and you haven't been to this lead magnet, a lead magnet is specifically you build a piece of software or an application for somebody to use for free solely to get an understanding of who's interested. Yeah. And so they launched this. You put your website in, and then it automatically goes and prints out PNG images of your top reviews. Genius. And like, who wouldn't want that? You're a business owner. You don't have an in-house designer, and you've got this cool little widget that you can just go plug your email in or website in, and then it spits out reviews for you to then post on social or keep as pictures on your Google My Business profile. Like you can put them front and center on. I mean, there's a variety of things you can do with these things. Print them out and put them on your counter if you've got an office that people visit. It was a cool idea. I liked what you guys did there.
Yeah, thank you. And that was our idea is like, it's just so dang noisy out there for these business owners and just for in general. If there's a good idea or there's a valuable solution, there's going to be like 10 people doing it and they're going to be selling. And so like to cut through the noise and kind of going into what you're doing at Modernize, like, and I used to run a clay agency, right? And so we're doing a lot of outbound for different SaaS companies and just showing up in the inbox like, hey, we have the solution. Do you want to buy it? Maybe if you're selling ChatGPT or you're selling Uber in 2012 or like something that truly is game changing, maybe that will work. But like those companies are so few and far between. Most of us are selling a relatively commoditized solution where there's a couple different options. Point is, you got to do more nowadays, I think, to get people's attention and to stand out. And you can't just typically, I mean, some people can, but I found it's hard to just cold call and pitch where it's like, hey, here's this free thing that's genuinely valuable that you can use. And if you happen to then consider my business as a byproduct of that, great.
Yeah.
If not, here's a free thing.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing at Modernize? What are you seeing working in terms of getting Modernize's offer and solution in front of small business owners?
So on the software side, I mean, not on the software side, on the business side, we're doing some things. So obviously we use Clay, and we're trying to find out as much as we possibly can on companies. This year, we're definitely focused on brand and awareness, top of funnel, image, representation. So we're doing a lot of content here today with you. Thank you for the opportunity. We've got something in the works that's going to be really exciting, and it's going to be around data, and it's going to be open source data, and we're going to allow people to have access to a lot of the things that we know, but in a very catered and curated way. And I don't want to talk about it yet because we'll be launching it soon. But we have access to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of homeowners every year. And
on the supply side.
And we get to communicate with them, and we can learn from them, and we can have information and knowledge about market trends and certain things because of that access. And so I think that's about as much as I'll give on that one. But for other things, I think it's really just when you're talking to anybody, like I'm talking to a business, but as a home improvement business, you're talking to a person. Like if you're not an emergency response provider, if you're a roofing provider or a siding provider or a windows provider, it's not necessarily I need to change this tomorrow type of business. You really got to get into the head of the person you're communicating with and like, what do they want to hear? Like something I would say that I would not recommend my team doing is just sending an email to people saying, do you need leads? Do you want 10 to 20 meetings next week?
Why not, James? I'm going to crush my quota with that.
It would be the same, like if I were to follow up with a window lead and I said, so you need windows? Yeah. I got 5 of them. What do you think? It's like there's so much a more interesting way you can put spin on that. Like I know from my company, I can reach out to a business and I can say, there's this much demand in your area. The average close rate is this. ACV is this. Average contract value. We can probably make you this much money in the next year if you have the right systems in place to do this. Right? Like that's such a cool email to write. Versus you want 10 meetings next week?
So yeah, personalization is big for us. Some of the most successful campaigns we've done to really grow Lead Truffle in the 5 months we've been around now was leaning into the idea of the existing CRMs that people are using. So, hey, we see you're using Service Titan. We see you're using Jobber. And because that just makes it so much more real.
How do you see that they're using Service Titan?
Built With.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It works that well?
Yeah.
I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I'll put you on, but Built With is a good one. Dimitro at Home Service Base.
Yeah, okay.
Shout out.
Wait,
Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I'm familiar with him, but
Okay.
I didn't know he had.
He's gonna be on. He's
He
coming.
lists technologies.
He's coming on the Workbench soon.
Because I was checking out the site when it first dropped.
Yeah,
and it was like but now he's.
Dimitro's the G. I met him at a coffee shop right next door.
No, he's in Austin?
Yeah, he's in Austin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Maybe we'll do a little three-way.
Oh.
Pause. But we'll do a little three-way conversation. But yeah, no, Dimitro's a great guy and Home Service Base, but Built With's really like the GOAT. They've been around forever. And
I didn't know they went that granular down to home improvement companies.
I mean, really, the thing with Built With is that like it needs to have some type of public facing link on a website. So Home Service and Jobber and House Call Pro and a lot of these CRMs have forms and widgets that are on the website. So yeah, they're very broad. Built With's database, which is their moat, is like they've been doing it for 15 years. Like,
so it's a Service Titan form on the website, and that's how you know because the pixel is on that form conversion page.
Right. So Built With, yeah.
Ah, okay.
And so
I've been trying to look for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can show you what we do after.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways.
We just partnered with Service Titan.
Nice.
So we're on their marketplace now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help us out there because we we have a bunch of Service Titan customers and we applied to their app store.
Yeah.
No, we're just not accepting the application. Sorry. Oh, bummer. Anyways, point is when doing outreach to these business owners and really any business owner or any business person or any outreach in general, I find that personalization super helpful and just making it more real.
Yeah.
You know, with that connection point. Reviews are another big one.
Yeah.
Review sentiment. Web traffic is good for us because we're like focused on converting web traffic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to personalize. Are you guys doing any cold calling at all? Are you finding that working for Modernize?
Yeah, our team's cold call. I came from a background of like no cold calling. Yeah. When I worked for Launch Darkly, we were generating millions in revenue, which is cold email. But this was back in the day when you could cold email. Now it's kind of a little bit more restrictive. I only like calling somebody if I have something to talk to them about.
Did your sister start Launch Darkly?
No. She has a biotech company. But no, Launch Darkly I joined in 2019. They were already like a Series B. I think they had just raised.
It's a good
Series
company.
B. Yeah, they're $1 billion brand. Yeah. But we built a majority of their customer base off of this cold email program where we had, similar to what we're talking about with like a lead truffle, you have this like if-then multivariate workflow where if the person opens an email more than 5 times, it means they're interested. So kick them into this more elaborate sequence and give them more information and more education. If they don't open at all in this whole sequence, send them to a wake me up sequence where all the subject lines are like capitalized and like provoking and like. And so
that was all pre-Clay you were doing.
That was all.
That's like Clay to a T nowadays.
Yeah, we were writing emails. We were coding our emails too. Where it was like, if industry is X, then list these 3 customers. If industry is Y, then list these 3 customers. So our email code was like this long, and then it would send an email like this long. And so we had this whole system built out that was just generating. Well, and we were also able to send 1,000 emails per inbox per day back then. And so it was like a whole different world. But yeah, it's. I think that the personalization and communication stuff, it's so important to do now because of the tolerance level that people have now for receiving communication. Like,
it's busier than ever.
Yeah.
It's so busy, and to your point there, like 2019 cold emails, you could build a business off the back of that. Yeah. I just don't think a lot of the existing channels, they've just been saturated. Marketers ruin everything. If something works, eventually everyone swarms on it, and then it doesn't work anymore. And I do think we're at like peak digital saturation right now, particularly with COVID, particularly with work from home. At least 5 years ago, there was probably a healthier mix of in-person and coffee and events. But I feel like everyone's so hyper-indexed on the digital right now because of the knock-on effects from COVID that, I just think those channels are tough. Unless you have some amazing offer or you're getting super creative, I think it's just hard to stand out in these digital channels.
And that's where like word of mouth is my favorite. Yeah. And so I'm super big on in-person handshakes, hugs, kissing babies, giving gifts. We're going back to you need something physical to remind you of that company.
Right.
One unique thing we started doing recently for some executives at financial firms that like holding companies and PE groups is we're sending them a Mont Blanc pen. And
that's a nice pen.
Yeah.
What did that run you?
It's like $400 a pen. And so I would say the cost per lead on on an executive at a PE firm for us is about $400, right? Like,
but worth it if that turns into the
right. But it has so much more. Like, am I pumping money into Google just praying somebody searches for the right thing? Am I pumping money into Facebook just hoping somebody clicks on my viral ad? Or am I just saying, yo, here's a link. If you enter your information in, we'll send you a pen. You do not have to meet with us. Hopefully you enjoy the pen. But if you do want to meet with us, we'd love to chat with you about your business. Yeah. And it's so much easier that way, because most people are like pretty considerate and they're like, nah, I'm not going to take the pen. Like, go away. I would say almost nobody has taken the pen and not met with us. Nice. So it's like, and you have to think about, and I was actually talking to our team about this today. You have to think about, because you can't scale unique gifts for everybody.
For sure. Well, you gotta. So for us, we're starting to look into franchises more. Yeah. We have a lot of independent home services. Some of them $5-10 million businesses are great, but one of those, if we could, close a deal with one franchise with 10 locations, that would be 10x. Maybe honestly similar. I'm the one that does all the sales.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of work to close that one independent company at $300 a month.
Yeah.
And I don't think doing it with the one VP of marketing of the franchise, it'll be longer.
Yeah.
But I could maybe put in a little bit more work and get 10 customers instead of one. Yeah. Point is, we're really starting to look in upmarket franchises. Yeah. And for us, it's would it make sense for us to send, direct mail or some type of gift in the mail to, John, the HVAC owner in Cincinnati? Maybe, but does it make sense to send it to the CEO of a 37 location franchise?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably, because if that does convert, we're in a good spot. So we're not quite there yet. We've really just started bottoms up.
Yeah, sure.
But we're going to start moving that way soon.
And it's not even, what's funny, and think of it this way. And there's somebody on LinkedIn, if you're a LinkedIn user, there's a person named Jordan Crawford. Yep. And he calls it, what does he call it? What is it? It's I'm sending you an email that you would pay for. And so he uses AI and Clay and these scraping tools to go find information for people that they would pay for. He basically generates a lead. He's like, hey, I scraped some data. I found this home. They just sold on Redfin, and it specifically lists in their improvements section that they need new HVAC system. And it's it's been quoted at $50K.
Right. I would actually argue that is a form of a lead magnet, right? And the lead magnet is, here is a high quality lead for your business for free.
And I think for the same thing, if you're responding to a window, a window lead, it's one, you're going to get a lot of information from that lead. You're going to get their home address. You're going to get plausibly male or female. I know there are some names that are in the middle, but you can kind of get an understanding of their persona profile and things like that. And you can get an understanding of if you have their address, the neighborhood. If you're a local business owner, when those homes were built, or you should at least have an idea of different areas and how old the homes are. You should have if you've committed to performing business in those areas for the past, you should know how previous jobs went. You should know what were the failures of the previous jobs, what were the hurdles you had to go through. So you can present information like that to them in the first email. Hey, we just did a house down the street 3 months ago. We ran into this issue. It looks like your home was built around the same time. We'd love to come over and talk to you about how we can make sure that your windows are done correctly, like we did the person down the street. That's a way better first email to send than, hey, you need windows, $250 off. It's another banner email, right? And so I think that's where, what AI is providing us these days is the ability to access unique insights that you could deliver to people that you had before. It's in your system. You have it. It just takes a lot of time for a human being to go and mine for it every time something comes up. So we can start programming little agents to kind of go get that for us and present it to the person as on an as needed basis. And so,
are you guys starting to do some of the things like that, with some Modernize users and clients, or internally at Modernize, or are you starting to work on some different AI focused stuff around that?
We do have an AI bot on the homeowner side of our site that's doing some question answering, cost calculator, things like that. And we're in the early stages of that. So a lot of experimentation on that. We don't really engage with the homeowner on a job basis. We let the contractor manage that. But on the business side, I'm trying to communicate with my customers as much as possible. Like, what are your problems? What are your hurdles? What are you seeing? And if I can get all that information, one, it helps me get more customers, but two, like we can just start spitballing about like having John Wilson. Like John Wilson has a team in his company building applications, like
Internal development.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like that's probably few and far between for HVAC.
No, but I mean, what's the head count, right? Like maybe you can get a 30-hour-a-week engineer, that's looking for some side work that can build you applications that are super simple now with tools like Lovable and Replit, and they can start building really interesting solutions for you on the spot. Like it's really, really cool what's going on now, and it really is just the limit is the person that's dreaming.
Yeah. What in terms of like AI use cases for you internally, or AI use cases you've seen from like some of your customers, or even John Wilson, who I know you met with recently, anything jump off the page? Anything super compelling, super interesting you've seen, or even personally that you've used AI for in your job?
Yeah, the AI voice is getting pretty strange.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
It's getting just barely annoying. Like it's still kind of annoying, but like I would say 75 to 80% of the population is willing to bear through it, just because it's like weekend or 9 p.m. at night, 10 p.m. at night, or whatever.
I had this experience. We had an issue with our Google Ads account, and I called, and it was an AI voice agent, and it was clearly of AI. I think they even said this, AI or whatever. But for me, my number one priority at that point was getting a problem solved as fast as possible, and if that meant talking to this agent and it could take action on my behalf, and I didn't need to wait for the call center somewhere in some part of the earth.
Yeah.
Like, sure. Like, I just want my problem solved.
Yeah.
So if it's like an AI agent that's going to solve it, I actually don't really care.
Yeah, they should almost like in the beginning of the situation say, what is the severity of your problem? I think people would learn to game that after a while, but like...
You just press 0.
Yeah,
it's like on the,
I'm a zero jammer.
Yeah.
Anytime I get an automated voice, I'm a zero jammer. Customer service. I'm like yelling it.
Cool, man. Well, anything we didn't dive into today or didn't talk about that you wanted to get to or cover?
No, I think really understanding what, if I'm just like pitching myself and like what we do as a company, and even just the industry, right? Because there's a lot of other players out there and we all play in the same field, and I think it's positive that we have competitors. So I'm not upset about it. But when you're working with a lead partner, just really be critical about the outcomes. Really know your math. Ask a lot of questions. Show up to the meetings. Show up to the reviews. Have an understanding of what happened to those leads that went down the funnel, and like really have it all mapped out and lined up. And as long as you are organized and fully aware of what's going on, you should have a positive outcome. And if not a positive outcome, the least amount of wasted experience. Because like sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes there's just a mismatch in whether it's systems or maybe those channels just don't quite work for you or whatever it is. Like every product is not for everybody. And so, but I encourage people, like if you haven't worked with a lead partner before, feel free to go ahead and try it out. There's a variety of options for a variety of business sizes. If you're small and you don't have a big sales team or you don't have a call center, we have direct dial calls that will come in to your office manager sitting at the desk. If they can answer, if they can close, if you can train them correctly, I think those are a really positive outcome. They close at a really high rate. And then you even have warm transfers. We are pre-qualifying on the phone and sending them over to you, which is another unique way of getting money in the door. And as long as you can close it and make money off of it, we try to give it to you at a price that makes sense to your business. And so I'd say like a lot of people have a lot of bad taste in their mouth from the history of our industry.
Yeah, it's one of those industries where it's like super necessary, but also people have had bad experiences.
Yeah, and I say keep trying it out. Everybody's improving, especially with the advent of AI. And also like this, there's a lot of people coming out of like tech and like kind of like even into home improvement ownership.
Yeah.
And
I see it all the time on here. People
Yeah.
did tech or finance for 10 years and now they're
And so like there's smart people getting into these companies now that are coming from a space where it was like super technical and super advanced and crazy data science and things like that. And they're bringing their inspiration into these companies that have been around for 20, 25 years. They're improving. And so I'd say have patience, and just know as much as you can and be a responsible lead buyer. And I think you're going to have a great outcome.
James, appreciate you coming on. People that want to connect with you, check out Modernize, Twitter, LinkedIn, website. Where can people find you in the company you work at?
Yeah, so I'm at James Zayner on Twitter, and I'm linkedin.com/in/James Zayner. And then Jay Zayner at Modernize. You can email me if you want. I'd love to
Hot
have
takes
a chat.
on LinkedIn. I'm seeing the hot takes.
Watch out.
I see you coming at some necks on there. James, appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you, brother.